Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Diaz-Rivera, and this is Status Update 4 for Mythbound. I'm going to try to be a one-take wonder here, so let's get right into it. So once again, I want to go ahead and thank our wonderful team. This has absolutely been the most intense semester thus far. Still, though, these guys find some way to balance it all and still put together a good project and fill out their tasks. So all kudos to them. They deserve all the commendation in the world. Once again, Mythbound is a really hard game to make, but these guys find a way to make it anyways. So, Mythbound is still the wonderful game that you guys know and love. In an alternate modern day Norway, Norse mythology is real. Valkyries host a high speed, deadly competition for the elite's entertainment. The Bound sacrifice their souls for a chance at glory in these games, fighting endlessly between Helheim and Midgard. So, you might remember that from Vertical Slice, we had Alvar's high and low poly. We had to go back and do a little bit more work. That did push back the texture a little bit, but now it's finally done. It's here, and it looks so amazing. Credit to Rachel Tiv. She did a really wonderful job on Alvar's texture. He was definitely a lot more complicated model than Skari, which explains a little bit of extra time. Speaking of Skari, we went ahead and we completed her attack combo. She is our high speed CQC movement character, so we went ahead and gave her some martial arts high speed palm strikes. Here is the VFX for those palm strikes. She comes out with a right swing, then a left swing, then a double swing, with a little flower like beam coming out from each of her palms. There's also a little bit of a hit effect. Whenever she hits a player, there is like a glass breaking effect in front of her. That last swing does the big glass breaking. We also had and got started on Alvar's attack combo. This has three swings. The first two swings are a strong stab forward. It's an extending one handed spear, so it has the range of a two handed spear. So he's using his other hand to counteract the weight of the spear a little bit in the back there. And then for that final swing, he comes and he does a big horizontal 180 swing in front of him. So this is a proxy animation meant to just highlight the VFX itself. But as you can see, we got that really cool water material there coming out in the cone in front. And then for that horizontal swing, you have the big 180 splash. We also got really, really solid work done on our Relic Rush objective. So over there on the right, that is the objective that the players are going to be fighting for our Relic Rush game mode. When the player has the objective in hand, it rotates around them. It goes up, down, and around, and it also rotates on its own axis. And then the goal there is what you see on the left. The actual pulse effect is what happens when the player has the relic in hand and interacts, dunking the relic into the goal. So that is the goal effect. Also, all of these VFX were made to look good when we changed the colors. That hasn't been implemented quite yet. We still need to do a little bit of quality testing on the color changes, but we will be changing these colors to have a blue variation and a red variation as well for the different teams. We've been making really, really solid progress on our asset database. First, I want to highlight Ash. He went ahead and he did our relic objective that you see there. Uh, he also got done with the pickups, the health and movement pickups that you see there on the bottom left. He also made a couple variations of bones that we can use throughout Helheim as props. Antler and Khan has also been working really hard. We went ahead and we got modular roofs. So for our asset pack, we already have modular buildings. So we went ahead and we took the texture from those from the wood parts of those buildings and applied them to the roofs. We made one solid roof and then we broke it up a million which ways. The supports are broken up. We have corner pieces, edge pieces, main line pieces, side pieces. Everything that you can think of. The intention here is that we wanted to match the modularity of our buildings with these roofs. We also wanted them to be curved because Viking roofs always are meant to have snow slide off of them. And then we also wanted them to be flat enough so that players could reasonably stand on them. We also have a pole there. It's a pretty simple model, but it's really useful in game. Players are able to grapple to this pole, swing around it, and get a lot of speed that way. Moving on, we've also got some good work from Rachel Flatley. In a couple of our levels, we have these blacksmithing areas. They just play into the theme. So we went ahead and we added a blacksmith hearth, kind of like a kiln. We've got some wall ornamentation there with the shield and the axes. And then we also have an anvil on a stump. Really, really high quality models here from Rachel Flatley. We also went ahead and got really solid progress on our dynamic hair and our dynamic cloth physics. So there on the left, you could see how Scari's hair physics are set up. The hair itself is isolated and then rigged. Then we go ahead and we see it in game in the middle there. Sorry if you get motion sickness a little bit. Got a lot of information. So you see a little bit more of the rig setup there on the top right as well for Scari's ponytail. We also have solid progress on the cloth, as you can see there in the bottom right. It's not quite ready yet for it to be super prominent in the engine. It's turning out to be a lot more complicated than we initially expected. That being said, we were able to do the work in this latter half of the semester to find out exactly what it takes, and we're confident that we're going to be able to get it in the final build. So another big challenge that we wanted to address, leaving vertical slice and approaching status update 4, is the Yggdrasil variants. So we wanted to reference this image here on the left. We wanted for Himmelborg, that castle in the mountains, to have the branches of Yggdrasil. We wanted Midgard to have the trunk of Yggdrasil, and for Helheim to have the roots of Yggdrasil. The goal is to have Yggdrasil super prominent across all of the levels to kind of connect them together, as the world's cohesion was something that we wanted to answer since Vertical Slice. So how did we do? We had to do a lot of experimentation, obviously. Um, we took some reference from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and other Norse games like Elden Ring, and we tried a couple different strategies. We had initially just a billboard. That's what you see on the bottom right. It didn't look too great. It was pretty obvious that it was a billboard. Even when we did some parallax effects, it was still really clear that it was just a 2D image. Then we also tried having a skybox with branches encroaching the entire level in these routes. Also, did not quite give the effect that we wanted. Still really clear that it's a 2D image. It doesn't give the 3D effect that we want. Even if we do some parallax affecting, it was not quite getting where we wanted to, even if we isolate it to a specific part of the skybox. So eventually, we went with the most expensive option, but surprisingly, it's pretty performant in game. We went ahead and we just threw in a giant mesh of a tree. We made the mesh as low poly as we possibly could, and then we segmented certain branches of the tree so that we had to minimize the amount of branches that we needed, and then we parallaxed some. And then we also had some billboards effects for our leaves. We had at least three billboards of the leaves, semi-transparent. We layer and parallax them, and it sort of makes this 3D dreamy look to our leaves that we really, really like. And this ended up being the solution that we carry over into our other levels as well. So here we have the trunk in Midgard. This also still has a little bit of a ways to go. The trunk extending into the sky currently doesn't have anything occluding it. We want to add some clouds, some thick clouds above to sort of make it transition seamlessly from that into the sky. But there we have the trunk, as you can see. And then we also have the roots stretching down below into Helheim. These look really, really cool. If we were to take it one step further, we'd probably segment parts of this model and stretch the roots out a little bit more throughout the skyline, just so it takes a little bit more real estate. But as is, it's giving us exactly the effect that we want. We got the roots in Helheim. We're super happy. Speaking of Helheim, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start highlighting each of our levels here. We got a lot of really solid work on these levels. We got the relic spawn set up for all of the levels. We've redone the levels to feel good for Relic Rush, and that Prime 3v3 game mode. We've also added Aurora Borealis effects above each of the different spawns, so it's a little bit more obvious where you're supposed to go. You can see little hints of it as the player looks up into the sky. We've added this graveyard section over here. We've set up our death planes, and then we've also set up simple collisions on all of our assets. So as you can see, it was really easy for me to do those wall jumps there, just because our really complicated assets now have just literally like box collisions wherever possible to make that logic a little bit more streamlined. Also, of course, you're seeing Alvar and all of his glory with each of these levels. Here we have Midgard, so he's going to go ahead and do a little bounce here. Again, simple collisions on these buildings to make it a little bit more easy to jump off of them. We have the original sections of Midgard that we had in mind segmented now. So instead of the ruins existing all throughout the level, the ruins represent one of the spawns, and these brick buildings represent another spawn, and then these sort of shack-like Viking huts represent another spawn. And there you can see the goal set up as well. So moving on, we have Himmenbjorg. This level has gotten some really, really good progress. Here we have the player sliding up onto this bridge. There we go. Moving their way into the castle, you're going to see what the relic looks like in each of these levels. It exists in the centerpiece. The player is able to grab that relic. Here, the player is just going to toss it aside so that they can keep exploring. Navigating over to this side area with the fountain, you can see the Yggdrasil in all its glory. Moving on to the back side, another garden with a statue. Very beautiful. And lastly, Skari moves her way over to this last enemy spawn. Once again, some little differentiation, the representation between brick buildings and shacks. So let's talk about mechanics. We got a lot to go over. First of all, is that we actually have all three of our game modes in the game. We have free for all, we have team deathmatch, and we have relic rush. Free for all, where you have to kill enemy players in order to reach a certain score. No teams at all. We also have team deathmatch. You play with up to 3 teams, trying to reach a specific score target. This is scaled for 3 versus 3 versus 3. We also have Relic Rush, which is the mainline game mode that separates Mythbound from everything else. Here you have to dunk the relic into enemy spawns. When an enemy has a relic dunked into their spawn 3 times, they are no longer able to respawn. All of these game modes have start and end conditions set up. We also have character and team selection. So here we have a simplified UI that comes up when you enter the game. We still need to integrate our art over into it, but it works. We have the abilities to select your character and your team. Your team will determine some things like your borders that we're going to get into. But when you select your character, that of course chooses your models, your animations, you choose your weapon, you get assigned all of the correct gas abilities. Everything works as you'd expect it to in a multiplayer game. Here are those borders that we were talking about. We do have team-specific borders set up. So whenever someone is on the same team as you, they're going to appear as a blue border. Whenever someone is the second team from you, they're going to have a red, and third team, they're going to have a yellow border, respectively. So here, as you can see, Skari is a different team than Alvar. So Alvar is able to go ahead and attack Skari. Alvar would not be able to attack a teammate. We're having some issues with this. As you could see, we just recently implemented the dynamic hair for Skari. This means that her hairline is kind of being outlined just because the mesh for the hair is separated. So we're glad that we identified this issue. We'll be able to crack down on it a little bit later. But for now, the team borders are in, they're working, which we're really, really happy about. We also went ahead and we expanded the relic properties since status update 3. So back then, you were able to pick up the relic, drop the relic, and then dunk the relic in the goal. But now, when you pick up the relic, you get slowed a little bit. You're able to throw the relic to a teammate. The reason for the slowing is because from some of our feedback from playtesting, we've understood that when 2 equally skilled players are in an engagement and one of them doesn't want to fight, it's really, really hard to keep up. Obviously, that was going to be the case when someone's trying to take the relic to a goal. So the idea is that you'll have to pass the relic between your teammates, enforcing that team-based gameplay that we want. And then also, if someone's trying to catch up to you, they're going to have a little bit of an advantage if you're not passing the relic back and forth or playing with your team. We also brought our movement abilities a little bit more in line. We went ahead and did this by adding a stamina system. So it was really important that we didn't want the player to have a really cluttered UI. We wanted that to be as simple as possible. We didn't want them to be keeping track of so many cooldowns. Preferably, we want them to keep track of one resource that affects all of their abilities, or at least their movement abilities. So that's what we did. We have currently 5 bars of stamina. They regenerate every 3 seconds. We can add a delay if we want from when you use stamina to when you're able to get some back. And then we have individual stamina costs for our different abilities, slide and dash taking 1, grapple taking 2, and then your super powerful ground slam taking 3 stamina. We also went ahead and we segmented the common combos that we saw in playtesting. So slide jump was really, really possible, or really popular rather. And then grapple dash slam was easily the most powerful combination, potentially too powerful even. So we make sure that the stamina cost and the potential cooldowns of wanting to use that ability after just using it were in line with our own expectations. So we've also went ahead and added a lot of player statuses to our game, and these can be applied to different abilities, and they also kind of identify the identity of these different characters. So here again, we have the stun. This is most identifying the character sponsored by Thor, Eirik. So when our proxy character go ahead and tosses a lightning spear at Alvar, you see that he gets stunned for just over a second. During this period, he's not able to use any of his movement keys. His abilities is completely input denied essentially during that stun period. Here, Alvar is really, really defined by his slow. So he goes ahead and he throws this tidal spear here. It leaves an AoE, and whenever the enemy is inside of that AoE, they are briefly slowed. It doesn't look like a lot from this video. Trust me, when you're slowed in game, it feels a lot worse. But also, this slow can be stacked. So if you throw multiple spears at an enemy, they get a 15% slow debuff. That's just going to stack onto itself until they can barely move. Also, Skari's defining status is her hex. So as you can see, when she hexes an enemy with her Veil Piercer dagger, they take a little bit more basic attack damage. So this is a damage debuff for basic attacks when the enemy is hexed, and the damage of the dagger is scaled to accommodate for that. Again, we don't have a model for Eirik just yet, so we have this proxy character doing his Thunderous Advance ability. So this is a movement tool, but it's also a damage tool. You charge forward, you're not able to use any of your inputs other than moving your camera. When you bump into a wall, it does cancel the charge, and if you bump into an enemy, they'll be knocked back and they'll take a serious amount of damage based on your speed. We did not expect to get this ability in for status update 4, but because our tech designers are so goaded, we managed to sneak in a hex support prototype just to see how it feels like in terms of gameplay before we invest too many resources into it. So here we have Skari. She leaves a clone in her midst. If an enemy attacks that clone, they would get hexed. At the moment, it is just a clone set up, and then the player can reactivate the ability to teleport back to that clone. The idea here is that you're chasing Skari. She teleports behind you, and she's able to get a few hits in the back. Also, when she teleports back to that clone, you see a little puff. That's actually an AoE hex effect that lingers. It's the same thing as if you were to destroy the clone yourself. So without further ado, let's give a small segment of gameplay. I know you guys have already seen a lot, but we do want to highlight how hectic some of these lobbies can get. Please enjoy.
I'm scarring.
So the following clip that you're about to see was taken within a single take.
Latinos, it's your turn now.
So we go ahead
Latinos,
and
it's your turn.
reload into the game.
Latinos! Assemble!
We left voice chat on just to represent what our actual audience might sound like playing this game. First thing I do is I run over and I pick up the relic, sliding over to the objective. I get pushed from
Get away
someone
from me!
from behind. I try to swat him away because
Oh,
my
get away
teammate's
from
not
me!
with me.
Oh, what a score!
Managed to get the goal.
Oh, you're so now.
I'm using my Alvar push
This
to
guy's
propel me
moving!
because there's no walls nearby to wall jump or grapple to. There's a little bit of a scrimmage here, so I go ahead and I try to support while my team is respawning. Using the downward slam
That's a
there.
crazy clip, actually. What is this?
There you can also see Alvar's attack animation in action. I see that guy has the relic, so that becomes my main point of aggression. And we win the scrimmage, so now we're taking the relic and we're running off. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the demo portion. We're going to round out with some production talk. So, our focus group testing, I want to highlight some of our earlier focus groups with Sprint 7. We understood that we need to work on visible other player data. So, things like health bars, nameplates, and making sure that those things are proximity based just so that the player has only the information that's most important to them. It's not up there, but also scoreboards, something that we learned from future playtest people really want. Also, we wanted to make some changes to our blocking. So at the time, blocking was based on your character, but that had some issues based on if the target was aerial or not, or if they were quickly moving around you. So making sure that the block direction was a little bit more in line with your camera orientation, and also changing the block area of effectiveness to help with it being used against aerial targets was really important. Also, we wanted to tune our projectiles to adjust for higher character speeds and the character's ability to redirect their speed a lot. So characters were balanced, or projectiles were balanced based on their area of effectiveness, their velocity, whether they had physics applied to them, their uptime. For the purpose of our playtests, we had way too much uptime on all of our abilities just to see which ones people naturally gravitate to and which ones were going to be abused. We also added that relic holder debuff that I was talking about a little bit earlier to allow for a little bit more conclusive chases. We also brought our 1 versus 1 TTK a little bit more in line with our team fight time to kill by just lowering the time to kill so that your engagements are more about positioning. When you get in with those melee attacks, you finish the engagement fast. It makes team fights a little bit more in line. And then also we had that really amazing playtest. Thank you, Kenny, for setting that up. We got a lot of really good data. A lot of our data is a little bit in the middle or a little bit just over the middle right now. This is as per our expectations. We were getting in a lot of content, and now is the time to sort of start juicing it up. Um, we also noticed that a lot of people were really confused, but they still wanted to play again, and it wasn't confusion to the point of frustration. They were still enjoying the game. So, what does this tell us? This tells us that absolutely we need to work on our player onboarding experience and our UX. We absolutely cannot push it anymore. We also have that hook on our players, so getting them to come back in and play the game is really good. It means that we've got something great. We're going in the right direction. We just have to make it a lot more player friendly going forward. Also, these playtests were based off of 55 playtesters playing our game on that playtesting day. So we had some major takeaways from that playtesting as well. We didn't do it in Relic Rush. We first wanted to try out Team Deathmatch because that wasn't our mainline game mode, and Relic Rush still had just a little bit more time to cook. Regardless, we still got a lot of important takeaways from that session. We understand that maps are a little bit too large for Team Deathmatch, and of course, by virtue, free for all. So this means that we're going to have to reorient our maps so that visibility is really clear when you don't have an objective. In Relic Rush, of course, you're going to have the UI telling you where the relic is and where the player holding the relic is and where the spawns are. But in Team Deathmatch, without that guidance, it's a little bit harder to get into engagements. Also, UX is incredibly important. That player data based on proximity that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Make sure that our team borders are working all the time. And then also having character and ability descriptions when you're trying to select your character, but also when you're in the game, being able to pull up a menu and see what your abilities do. We also have to do some important rebalancing for our abilities. This isn't just in the sake of tuning the abilities, but it's also in sake of tuning the levels, giving more power positions and places of verticality for people to use the grapple to get to and use the downward slam from. We learned a lot about how abusable some of our abilities are. Um, there was a joke that we added guns to the game because people were using projectiles so much. We also have to simplify our stamina system because even though the cooldowns and the uptime on the different movement abilities are the way that we want them, it still wasn't super clear to the player what things costed 2 stamina versus 3 stamina. Some people thought that their downward slam simply didn't work because there were too many restrictions on it. This makes perfect sense. Yeah, this makes perfect sense. So we're going to be trying to bring that a little bit more in line, reduce the amount of information that the player has to keep track of in an already hectic game. So we went ahead and we moved our alpha date down to June 23rd, some time ago. The reason for this is that we understood that we needed to do a little bit of reworks based on our abilities. We had gotten a lot of playtest feedback, and we really want to give ourselves the time to juice things up the way that we want to, without having to do so in post production, of course. So, where are we now versus where we want to be? Um, we have two finished characters in Engine, Skari, and Alvar versus our 3 character goal. We have all of our sponsor abilities, albeit one of them being in a prototype phase and one of them still needing VFX. Forgive me. We also have all 4 of our movement abilities and all 3 of our combat abilities, and we have all 3 of our game modes. We have 3 gameplay ready levels, but they still have yet to be fully artified. So that is where we are going. But unfortunately, as you can tell from the burn down chart, we are a little bit behind schedule leading up to Sprint 8. Like I mentioned, this semester was absolutely intense for everybody on the team. So we did fall behind a little bit in schedule. So, of course, when you fall behind, that means you have to reevaluate your progress. So this is what we're looking at. Uh, Alvar was a lot more complicated of a model, which means it took longer, which means it potentially puts 3 characters at risk. We have a solution to this that I'll get into just a moment. We have all of our sponsor abilities, our movement abilities, and our combat abilities, but based on playtesting data, we are thinking that we may have to do some reworks on abilities, potentially some ability redistribution. We're going to have to go back and we're going to have to do some changes on them, of course. We also have our game modes, which work. No real problems for them outside of just modifying the levels to cater to them. And then our 3 fully artified gameplay levels, we did not reach the goals that we wanted to for the levels just as is. So we are going to be doing some negotiations for the levels to see where we can go. And some of those negotiations across the board include bringing our 3 character goal down to 2 characters. This doesn't mean that we're completely abandoning the idea of 3 class identities. We do want to experiment with what it would look like when we bring Irik's abilities applied to the 2 characters and just have 2 classes. But we're also experimenting with some other contingency plans, things like retexturing our existing characters and adding symbolism to them, that represents the different sponsors so that you could have these 2 characters or body types and then still have your 3 classes that you choose from. Of course, those negotiations to the abilities, as I mentioned before, no changes to our base game mode logic, and then bringing our 3 gameplay ready levels into 2 gameplay levels. Once those 2 gameplay levels are done, then and only then can we unvault the 3rd gameplay level to finish progress on that. But for the time being, UX and finished polish levels are just too important. We hope you all understand. We're going to have a foundation for better focus groups over the summer. There's no strict hours over the summer, but of course, people want to either make up for hours over the semester or just get a head start on the year. So we're going to be mainly responding to our playtesting, figuring out which is the best contingency plan for our characters, and also setting up telemetry for better focus group testing. When we come back, we're going to be doing a brunt of our polish, core usability for our UX and UI, and tackling some of things like the ability redistribution and tuning and reworks that I was talking about. Sprint 11, this is our final push to alpha. We're going to be doing some residual balancing, fully artifying our levels, getting the artists in on the levels to do those final touches. And then, of course, those progs are going to be taking on bug fixing and network optimization. Sprint 12, this is our fallback sprint. We have nothing slotted. Of course, some things will eventually leak into that sprint, but we are prepared for that inevitability. And that's what we got for you. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.